Hi everyone, very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all are joining us globally. I am Parth Varu, Events and Program Manager for Microsoft Reactor India, and yes, I welcome you all to yet another episode of Azure ML Prompt Flow. But let's go through our code of conduct. We are all here to participate together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding their differences, be kind and considerate in a way we all engage. Yes, we do encourage you all to participate. Please drop in all your questions in the comment section and time of Q&A, we'll pick it up from there. Now, I would like to bring in Vinayak and Ruth. Hi Vinayak, hi Ruth. Hope you all are doing great. And we are at our second episode today.
Hi everyone, welcome back. This is a second episode in our series on trustworthy and responsible AI. So what we are going to talk about today is about prompt ML uh, prompt flow, and let me just start with the intro, and I'll also talk a little bit about why responsible AI is an important consideration. So my name is Vinayak Hegde, and I currently work as a CTO in residence at Microsoft for Startups. So you just saw the video from Microsoft for Startups. We run a founders up program, and I help startups actually scale up their tech stack, team, and products. So responsible AI is an important consideration for startups building production AI systems. It's not something that can be bolted on once the system goes out to production, or maybe just before that. It needs to be an integral part of the system, right from the dev environment, testing, onto staging and production. And there are various reasons why you should actually um, care about responsible AI, right? So all the AI systems that we build have a social impact, right? Your users will be using them or making decisions. You'll also have, if you're a B2C startup, then the wrong responses by the bots or by the co-pilots that you build can cause consumer complaints, which eventually can lead to churn and loss of reputation, especially if it gets posted onto social media. And we've seen many examples of this in the recent past, even from bigger companies. And then there can be fines by the regulator or government, right? So you have to think about the social impact, and try to build the quality and trust with your users. It also allows you to gain a big competitive advantage as well over your competitors, because you by showing ethical and transparent AI, you gain trust from your users, investors, partners, and from other stakeholders in the ecosystem, right? And I said, because the accountability, transparency, and explainability that you build into your systems, it will help you actually also do legal compliance. Similarly, if you are a B2B company, especially in a high risk scenarios, if you're selling software, let's say in a regulated sector like healthcare or fintech or any other sector as well, people who are sitting on the buyer panel and making buying decisions will ask you about all of these aspects: the explainability, the fairness, the transparent accountability for your algorithms. And they won't buy a product until you do well on these parameters. However, the tooling in this space is evolving quickly, and in this series we are going to cover, as I said, three different tools. We already have done one in this series, and we'll be posting a link in case you have missed the first one. We'll be posting a link to that. And this is the second part in the series. So we're introducing you to this tooling so that you can build better, robust, fair, and explainable AI systems. So with that, I'm going to introduce Ruth, who is the principal cloud advocate at Microsoft. Ruth has been specializing in Java, advanced analytics, data platforms, and artificial intelligence. In addition, she's been a well sought out tech speaker at various conferences like Microsoft Ignite, O'Reilly Velocity, and many, many more. And prior to Microsoft, she was also worked for great companies like Unisys, Accenture, and DirecTV. And over the years, she's gained a lot of experience with with software architectural design and programming. And she was also awarded DZone's most valuable blogger. So not only is she fabulous at tech, but she's also a very good communicator. With that, I think over to you, Ruth. Take it away.
Thanks, Vinyak. Your introduction is too kind. Um, Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to talk to the startup community. Thanks for having me. As Vinayak mentioned, this is part two of a three-part series. Um, we covered content safety in the last session. So some of the content that we have covered in that session. I highly recommend you to go back and watch the video. Prath, can we share the link for the prior session that we had for people that are new? And for
Yep.
people that have come back for part 2, thanks for coming back for more services that we'll be sharing. One thing to mention is for this workshop, it is going to be a lot of steps before we actually get to the good part of it. So I'm going to give you a disclaimer. We're going to be doing a lot of steps before setup steps. But please stick around, because once you see at the end the output that we're building, you can better appreciate prompt flow and how to build your applications using LLMs and other API services that you have. So the first thing I'm going to do is share my screen.
Yep. The floor is all yours. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to share my screen. Since this is a hands-on workshop, I highly also encourage you to ask any questions. This is an interactive session. There's no person left behind. So as we're going through, if you have any questions, please raise it. But before we start this session, I want to take you to hang on. I want to take you to the actual website of this workshop. If we can paste the link of the workshop, that'll be helpful for the users. Once the URL is up, basically what you need to do is go to the website. All the different workshops that we're covering is listed below. You can read the description. But most importantly for today, for the workshop that we're covering is Azure Prompt Flow. So select that now if you have your environment, your computer. The next thing you need to do, because it takes about 10 minutes for all your dependencies to be created in an environment for this workshop. All you need to do is click on Build Lab Environment, go to that page for Prompt Flow, and just click on Open GitHub Codespaces. So once you open that, automatically it should have like a green interactive window. If you don't have that, just click on New. For me, I already have environment that I prepped for this workshop, so you don't need to worry about that. But click on this. Don't do anything else. While we're going through the introductory PowerPoint, you should be able to see in the background, it'll be building your environment. So you see a screen that looks like this. Just minimize the screen. Then we'll go back to covering the context of what Prompt Flow is and giving you a background on it. So another way to access this workshop is going to the URL that's above. That's another way you can access the workshop directly and follow the steps that I just showed you to launch Prompt Flow. Another thing is if you have your phones, just scan the QRL, and that should take you to the link of the workshop, and just launch the GitHub Codespaces. then you should be good to go. So with that said, let's get started. So today we're going to cover prompt engineering, lay a foundation. We hear about prompt engineering. What is it? And what does it do? The next thing is Prompt Flow. This is Azure Prompt Flow features. I'm sure you're wondering, okay, what is that? What does it do? So we'll go into details. And next, we'll talk about the capabilities of evaluating your flows on a larger scale. Then we'll dive right into the hands-on exercise. So I hope you guys are excited as I am. Prerequisites. Number one, since you guys are the startup audience, I'm assuming most people are in the Founders Hub program. If you're not, also put a note if you want to join Founders Hub, and we can provide more information on that if you're a startup. The next thing is your Azure subscription that you're using today. Make sure it has Azure OpenAI enabled. I believe the Founders Hub participants do have that already enabled. Then the last thing is you need to sign up for GitHub Codespaces. In the introduction of the prompt flow, when you go to the website, just in case you don't have that, as I'm going through the PowerPoint, quickly click on the sign up link, and you'll be able to sign up for GitHub Codespaces because it makes it easy for you to build solutions and not worry about the environment because everything is already created and provisioned for you. So let's get started. So the trend that we're seeing in AI today is AI is growing at a very rapid pace in terms of innovations and breakthroughs, which is very exciting. I remember in 2022, we were just talking about traditional machine learning models, and by the end of the year, it was OpenAI, and all of last year, all the conversations were around generative AI and all the powerful different capabilities of it. So I'm sure you guys are aware of this and experience this. The next thing is companies are investing, putting a lot of investments into adopting AI into their internal business processes and also their external processes. And also, we also have employees within companies that are using things like Dolly or ChatGPT, for example, to make themselves more productive and create content that is very valuable. With all of this excitement, we're also seeing society expectation evolving. There's a lot of excitement, but a lot of scrutiny and concerns around AI and the potential harms that it can cause to individuals and society. And Vinayak already expressed that in the introduction. The next thing is with all the uproar and concerns that people have, we also have governments responding as a result and starting to put regulations in place for AI systems or solutions out there. So this is something critical that startups should also be aware because you can build an AI system. If it's customer facing, you could be liable if your AI causes any harm, or if you're a B2B startup and you get acquired by partnered with a larger organization, if something goes awry, you will also potentially be responsible. So the next thing is what is prompt engineering? So prompt engineering is part of natural language processing that involves embedding descriptions of tasks and input to a prompt to enable the model that you're creating to output a desired result that you want. So when we say prompts, what does that mean? So prompts are usually descriptions of exactly what the system is going to do. If you look at a system prompt, it also provides instructions on what it should and should not do. So let's say, be polite, do not do this, you must decline that, or instructions on where to find the data. It also provides examples to give the system examples of if you want things formatted in a certain way. So those are the power and capabilities of working with prompts when you're dealing with prompt engineering. The next thing we're going to cover, this is pertaining to this particular lab that we're doing. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of vector database and vectorization and embedding. So this is a quick overview of when you hear that, what do we actually mean? So with vectorization is basically taking a whole bunch of text. So let's say you have a text that said her dress is a prom dress. All it's doing, the very first step is converting the words into a token. So the token is just a mapping to a meaning. So think of a corpus of vocabulary or a dictionary, and this is a mapping that for this particular word, this is a numeric representation of that word. So it converts it to a numeric token. Then the next thing is around embedding. And this is where, if you hear of like the different embedding systems out there, like OpenAI, there's text embedding hyphen ADA. That's another embedding model that you can give it text. It's able to go through this transformation. And basically what it's doing is grouping your text into the meanings. So the different meanings that it has in its dictionary. So if you look at the word capital, what does capital mean? We can be talking about capital letters. We can be talking about a location, like, okay, the state capital. Can be talking about capital punishment. And we can be talking about finances, like, okay, what's capital of your financial gains or tax and whatnot. So this is what's going on in the background, adding semantic meaning and grouping that. So if you look at the word dress, it has the same token and it will have the similar grouping. To give you a high level, embedding comes in different data sources. The one that we're dealing with is text embeddings, but you could have images, audio, video, and text. And we have transformers that can embed your content into vectors. And in our situation, we're storing this into a vector database. This is when you have your own data. But we'll come back to that later. It'll make a little more sense into that. The next thing is streamlining prompt engineering projects. So the question is, what is prompt flow? So prompt flow is actually service within It used to be under Azure Machine Learning Studio, but you can also find it in the new Azure AI Studio, which we're moving towards in the future. So for this lab, we're going to be using the Machine Learning Studio, but in the future, if you see is supported in the Azure AI Studio, it's basically the same functionality, so don't worry about it. So let's talk about why you should care. What is the benefit of it? It helps you create AI flows that connect with various language APIs, data sources, kind of like how I mentioned, if you're bringing your own data to ground with LLMs on your data source. So if you're dealing with LLMs, this is a very good tool. It's a visual interactive tool that you're creating on a UI, on a visual flow. If you're to do all of this in, let's say, a notebook, it's going to be a lot of tedious lines and different libraries that you probably have to bring in for the different components. So this is a very good visual way of adding the different components into your flow, and also adding logic in the way you want to build your AI application. The next thing is kind of like how I mentioned. First, it's a platform that you can design, construct, tune, evaluate, and test, and also deploy your LLM workflows on a larger scale. The good thing is Microsoft also provides pre-built evaluation templates. As you guys know, evaluating LLM applications is a challenge. But the good thing is you do have pre-built solutions, evaluation templates out there. And the good thing is also, depending on your use case, you can pick and choose what evaluation that you want to utilize to see how accurate things like accuracy, how relevant your responses are. Is it grounded? We'll get to groundedness later. Then sometimes you're creating prompts and you don't know which one is more efficient based upon what you wanted to do. So this gives you an ability to create different prompts, system prompts, which we're going to cover in the lab. And that gives you an opportunity to compare performance and also outputs to figure out, okay, this is the best prompt that would be suitable, that has less errors when you're dealing with your end AI solution that you're building. So just a walk in memory lane with traditional machine learning solutions. The steps is we have machine learning engineers, data scientists, you have a model, you have data, you have an environment to run it on, you have features. And the typical metrics that we're looking at is things like accuracy. So you see like, okay, a 90% accuracy score. Problem is these are aggregated. This is an aggregated calculation that just gives you a number. But where are the human-centric aspects that would show you things like bias or things that could potentially pose harm? And also, usually you're building things from scratch. When we come to LLMs, it's the same audience. You have machine learning engineers, you have app developers, so AI developers. What are you using? You're using LLM models. So let's say you're using OpenAI. Azure OpenAI, you're also using agents, you're using other plugins. So are you plugging in Wikipedia? That sort of thing. You're also creating prompts on do's and don'ts, restrictions, and instructions on how your system should behave. Sometimes you're creating chains of how you want that conversation flow to flow. And also, you are integrating with other APIs as well. So it gives you that capability. We're in the LLM um, side of things, the good thing is we're still sticking to our traditional accuracy, depending on what the use case is. We're also doing fairness assessments. We're testing for groundedness. So groundedness just means that, okay, if you have your business that you have utilized, because one thing with these large language models that are already pre-trained, they were trained at a certain point in time. So if the models were trained last year. Anything happening this year, if you ask questions towards that, it's not going to have. So if you have your particular business that you want to pose users to have pose queries or inquiries against, and you need a response back, groundedness make sure that it is the responses are coming directly with the sources that you told it, data sources that you told it to grab the information on. The good thing is it also brings relevance. So let's say I have a dental office and somebody comes in there and enters a prompt on, okay, can you give me tax advice? If it's not grounded, yes, maybe the OpenAI solution is going to give them tax advice and whatnot. The problem is this can pose a problem on your business if things go awry. Um, that sort of thing. So you want to make sure things are relevant to your business. Then you can also measure for cohesiveness. I talked about pre-built versus fine tuning. So pre-built is already pre-built LLMs, and fine tuning is when you add data and retrain on top of the pre-built solution. So, on a high level, what are the capabilities? You're able to develop the workflows. So, flows, you can connect your data sources, language model tools, and customize it the way you want. The good thing is you can also bring in Python if you need formatting or other logic, business logic that you want to integrate into your flow. You have the capability of testing. We already went through that. Then you also have an opportunity to create prompts and do some prompt engineering. So if you took our last part one of this series, we went into depth about creating prompt engineering, good prompts to also prevent some malice, like things like jailbreaking. So all of that still applies to this. Then if you have multiple prompts, depending on the different audiences too, because it could be the same products, but you're catering it to different audiences, you can create it multiple prompts for your solution as well. Then you have the ability of comparing results and figuring out what is which model or variant is more accurate or efficient. Then when it comes to connections, it has a very good user interface for you to connect to things like Azure OpenAI. So all you do is provide the API and the endpoint API of your service that you want to bring in and the key. You also, if you're bringing in things like content safety, which we covered today in part one, you can also bring that. So those are examples of other services or APIs that you can easily bring in. Also, it has under connections, it has a good way of storing your credentials in an encrypted manner. Then if you have connections to Python tools, it has one place that you can manage all of that. So you don't need to worry about in your code going in and modifying your code to have all of that. Then finally, kind of like how I mentioned, when you're creating your prompts, groundedness is important. So you're specifying that, okay, you should restrict your um, results from this data source. You can add do's and don'ts of what it should do. But at the end of the things, how does responsible AI come into this? You have to be able to provide factual information um, pertaining to the scope of your AI system. And sometimes, even when you provide factual information, kind of like, let's say for the dental use case that we're using, somebody can come and ask for something related to dental, but your solution may provide a correct answer. Let's say supplements somebody should take, but if that's not part of your data and somebody goes in and takes supplements and gets sick and God forbid um, it involves in some kind of fatality or allergic reaction, guess what? You are going to be liable for it. So that's an example of another hallucination. And other ways you can get hallucination is the OpenAI or LLMs are not up to date. So sometimes it may provide you an answer because they're eager to provide outputs and responses. But it may give you a response that is completely false, but it even does you another favor. It provides all these references that are also false as well. But looking at it, it looks like the real deal. So if you utilize that, somebody utilize that information, takes it and gets themselves in trouble, or is something that's harmful for them, then you're also liable for that. So these are some of the examples of groundedness, kind of like how I mentioned. You have a dental office. It should just be relevant and factual to your business or the scope of your work. Somebody should not come and ask for stock advice on your website. When we talk about hallucination, this is not providing factual information and also providing references that are false. So, for example, giving information like cats are descendants of peacocks. Let's say somebody asks, okay, what are the where are cats descended, or what are the descendants of cats? And it says cats are descendants of peacocks. That's false, and it gives the article and the year and the page information. All of this is false. So those are things that could happen. So we have to be very vigilant on that. Then the next thing is around evaluation. I already covered this. This will be covered in the module that we in the exercise. But basically, you do have pre-built solutions. You have multiple variants of your prompt, and you can evaluate how your the different variants are performing and look at the scores. The good thing is you can also do bulk tests on your testing on a larger scale. So that is basically an introduction to prompt flow and what it does. So in this exercise, we're basically going to be using a bot, creating a bot from scratch. using a Contoso dental clinic. So to go to the workshop, if you already have it open or you don't, use a hyperlink or also the QR code that would take you directly to the exercise. So let's exit out of that. So let's get back to the workshop. So with the workshop, the very first thing, the prerequisites that I was mentioning, make sure you have open AI. If you don't, this is a link later on that you can request the OpenAI access to your subscription and also sign up for Azure Code Spaces. Before we started, got into the presentation deck, we launched Azure Code Spaces. It brought up a screen that downloaded all the Python dependencies and the different dependencies that we need for this lab. So that was running in the background. The next thing is once it finishes running and installing all the extensions and dependencies, it's going to launch a Visual Studio Code editor, which we're going to go to. So that's, let me close out of this. This is the one that we launched. So just in case you had it running in the background and you open it now, all you need to do is click on Restart Code Spaces to relaunch it. So everything that you've done, even if you set environment settings and whatnot, everything that you do is going to be stored. So that session is still alive and active. So as it's loading the Python code or the Jupyter Notebook code, the very first thing you need to do is set the Python environment. So in the instructions, all you need to do is click on this copy icon. And when we get back to GitHub Code Spaces, you should have a prompt. And if you don't, another way to find the terminal is go to this waffle icon, click on the waffle, and select New Terminal. And this will bring the terminal prompt. And basically what you're doing, oh, I thought I copied that. Basically what you're doing is copying this command to prompt the environment for that you're going to be using for the Python dependencies that are downloaded. So when you run that, you see that it's gonna show the environment that you're currently working on. So since I already ran that before the lab, I'm gonna skip that part. The next thing you need to do is authenticate. So for those that were here in the other session, they've already gone through this, but basically you copy that, and this is for you to authenticate into your Azure subscription account. So the very first thing you're going to see is a URL. Click on the URL or copy and paste the URL, but clicking on it usually has like a follow link. So it will open a new terminal and it's asking you for a code. So do not ignore this message because it gave you a unique code for your device. So all you need to do is enter the code. So once you enter the code, click on next. It's going to ask you to verify, pick the email attached to your Azure subscription. Then just follow the prompt. It's going to do a multi-factor authentication on your behalf. Once you've authenticated, the next thing it'll do is just show your account. For some of you, if you have multiple accounts, let's say more than one account ID, what you'll need to do is the output that's shown here, just copy this, and there's a field called ID. All you need to do is tell it that, okay, I have multiple subscriptions that are displayed. I just want to use this subscription. So just copy that subscription ID and substitute it with this placeholder. So that's how you're gonna be ready to run this lab. The next thing is now that you're connected to the Azure, your Azure account from this remote environment on GitHub CodeSpaces, the regions that have Azure OpenAI enabled, since we're going to be using GPT 3.5 Turbo, are these regions. So no matter where you are in the world, pick one of the regions that is closer to you. These are regions that we have this in preview. You're going to utilize that for creating a resource group. So exactly that name, you're going to specify for location. So in my case, what I'm going to do is actually, I don't need that. So let me cancel. So what I'm going to do is create, I'm located in New York, so I'll use East US. I can type this morning. Then also I'm going to give it a name. So just give it a unique name, just in case it fails. Just know that it needs a unique name. I'm going to give it RG to remind me that it's what's it called? Resource group. So you're going to get an output like this. It's just confirming that you've created your resource group. The next thing is we're going to run a bicep script that creates a lot of provisions, a lot of resources, Azure AI resources that you need. All of those need to know what your resource group is. So instead of entering a resource group over and over again, the trick to set your resource group as an environment variable, so it won't ask you for all of that, is replace a placeholder and set your resource group. So whatever resource group that you just created, just enter the name of it and press enter. Since I already used a different resource group that I created earlier, I'm not going to go through that step. But that's how to set the default resource group in your environment. So the scripts that you're running would, would know which resource group to create it under. And the good thing is everything that you create is going to be in that resource group bucket. So the next thing is we have the bicep script. So once you run that script, the good thing is it's interactive. So the very first thing it's going to ask you is an OpenAI name. So I'm going to give it AZ demo startup. Just give it a unique name. Say workshop. Then it's going to ask you for content safety. Enter the name. Content safe. Then the next thing it is going to ask you is you're going to create a Azure Workspace. So give it a unique name. So let's say I entered Azure ML WS, which is Workspace. If you use the same name, it's gonna fail because it is a duplicate. So this name needs to be unique so you can add um, like your initials and whatnot. The next thing you need to do is out of that list of resource groups that I provided, also select the same resource group. So for me, since I use East US, I'm going to select that and press enter. Since I already ran this, it's already provisioned resource for me. But once you create, press enter, you have a spinner. And basically the spinner will run for about, say, 1 minute and provision all the resources that you need. So that's what's going on. Once that's done, the next thing you need to do is go to your Azure environment and under resource group. So go to um, your resource group and under the environment that you work resource group, sorry, I'm getting tongue tied. Under the resource group that you created, everything that you just did in the bicep, these are the resources that it creates. One thing you need to do is click on the Azure Machine Learning Workspace. Once you do that, you're going to see something here, a link here that says download config file. So you can click on that. It's gonna download this config file in your local environment. In the lab, it asks you to click on Studio, get into the Azure Machine Learning Studio. Another way to find that is basically find your workspace, click on that down arrow, and it also has a download config file. So once you have that config file, it's a JSON file, make sure you upload it into, so anywhere in, like you can right click on the parent directory. So anywhere in this open space, just click on upload and select the name. Since I had multiple ones, after I uploaded, I had to rename. You can also upload it in the source directory as well. But make sure if you had multiple ones, remove the different duplicates names and just make sure it's called config that JSON. Once you have that, because what's inside is your subscription, your resource group, and the name of your Azure workspace. So it knows how to connect to your Azure machine learning workspace. So that's all that's doing. Also, now that you're ready, you open the Jupyter Notebook. What we're doing right now, we have our source data in here, the Contoso data with all the question and answer. So I'll show you guys how it looks like. It's basically questions and answers. So this is like a Q&A for your business that you want to upload. So what we're going to do, like here, there should be, before you select an environment, it'll say select kernel. You click on that button, it's going to launch this window and it'll say Python environments. When you click on that, you find this particular environment, py38 underscore environment. Select that. Once you select that, you're going to see it here. Since I ran this before this workshop, I already selected it. But after you do that, click on Run All. Hope I'm not going too fast and everybody is following that. So when you click on Run All, the very first thing it's going to do is authenticate to your Azure Machine Learning workspace. And guess what? It utilizes your config.json file that you downloaded over using the credentials that are inside. Next thing is we have our data source. We provide the path of it. And also we are registering the data source in the Azure dataset location. So the good thing about the Azure workspace is all the data that you have used here for your environment, it makes it a one-stop shop that you can store all the data. So later on, let's say you get audited or other people want to utilize the data, or you want to trace which data you run an experiment, this is a good way to register the data set that you were using for the lab. So that's what we're doing there. Then the next thing is we are creating a compute environment that we're going to run our flow against. Then the next things we're doing is creating a connection to our OpenAI endpoint that you created. Then also the deployment names that we specified. So after all of that, what it's going to do is create an embedding for your workshop. So let's go back to the portal. So we're going to go to the AI Studio. In your lab, it should provide a URL after you run the notebook that you can click on in order to get to the studio. So once you get to the Azure Machine Learning Studio, you're going to click on Prompt Flow. So the very first thing you need to do for Prompt Flow is go under connections. It did create a connection from the GitHub, the notebook that you had. But one thing it did not do is include your subscription. So what you need to do is select your subscription number in the drop down. So let me search for mine real quick. We're selecting the subscription. Then I also need to give it the name of the prompt, the OpenAI service that I created. So that's that. Then the next thing we're going to do is come back to the flow. Before we do that, let me verify that we did create a GPT environment. So give me a quick minute. Let me confirm that we did create a GPT environment. So I'm going to go to OpenAI. I'm going to go to explore and deploy. Okay, that's taking a little while. While we wait, are there any questions? Okay, I take that as a no.
There are a couple of questions. Um, let me quickly take them.
Okay.
I think there is one question regarding the support for GPT-4 API. So does it support GPT-4 API?
Yes, that's in preview. I don't know whether it's in GA yet, but I believe it's in preview. I have to double check with the product team. to see whether it's readily, generally available. So to confirm that you have your deployment, um, you can go to the AI, Azure AI Studio, and under deployments, you can confirm that you do have the GPT. So we are good to go in terms of that. So let me quickly come back to the prompt flow um, and create a flow. So now we're ready to create a flow. Actually, we're not. The next thing we need to do is also make sure our environment is created. So the prompt environment, even though we do have a compute, you have a compute, we need libraries that are gonna run our execute our flow. So I need to verify, even though it was created, I need to verify that it is running. It looks like it has stopped. So all I need to do is turn it on to make it running. Then while it's running, we'll wait for it to turn green. This takes a while. So if there are more questions, let me know. And kind
Yeah,
of like,
there
sorry.
is one question. So Mim O'Flynn asks, when you load the data into a CSV file in your data, sorry, when you load in a CSV file in your data, how does the model know its structure? Uh, do you tell it its layout?
Nope. You don't need to tell it its structure. Um, as you load it, there are different formats. You can even load that like that MD file, um, like a markdown file that has content in it, and automatically it is able to um, know what it is because you are um, providing like a corpus of data, so it does know. All it's doing is natural language processing, so it's looking at your data to understand and convert everything into like a vector format. So in the presentation, kind of like how I was mentioning, all it's going to be doing is associating all of the text that you're giving it to meanings and grouping them into other similar words that have the same meaning. So when somebody queries something, asks a question, it's just going to go and figure out where um, it does like a nearest neighbor ranking. So we'll figure out, okay, I have multiple answers, but which one has the highest score that would be relevant to the inquiry that the user submitted. Uh, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, because it's on YouTube, we can't get feedback,
Oh,
unfortunately. Also, I think Mim
okay.
has made a good suggestion. I think we should add the link to the workshop and other tools in the video series, because I think many of the people will be going back and um, checking the presentation and the videos. So we'll do that definitely.
I
Um, I
yeah.
think we are almost at time. Ruth, I just wanted to let you know that, and then
Okay.
I'll go back and mute myself, while you complete it.
Okay. So it's going to take a few minutes for the compute to be ready. But the very first thing, what we did there is we set the environment when we're adding the runtime. When you're creating the runtime, you need the compute, but you need a default environment. That's like a Docker environment for prompt flow. So all the dependencies on prompt flow are in there. So that's the environment that you need to attach to your compute. So to create a flow, the very first thing we're going to do is Azure does a good job of providing a gallery for you to get started with. So you can, based upon your use case, you can pick one of these. But for us, we're just going to start with the this basic hello world what's it called, chat. So this would be for, we're going to call it Contoso Dental, and click on create. So this is going to be a chat GPT solution. So automatically when we do that, the template will come out, and it has the input for history and questions, because since this is a dialogue, it needs to keep context of what conversation is, so it can give you answers pertaining to that context. The output is always going to be the answer. And here, this is a prompt that is pre-generated. If you want to change it, you can do the same. The mapping is mapped for the input. The question is mapped from the field that is here. So the user input is passing it there, and the history of the conversation is also grabbing that from there. So to test the default chat, all we need to do is connect it to a LLM. So if you have an existing LLM that you added in the connection, you utilize that. For us, we have Azure OpenAI, so we select the name of that connection. The next thing is, what is the GPT deployment name that we gave it? We call it GPT 35 Turbo. So once we set that, we need to save it. And let me verify that we were able to successfully complete run. Okay, perfect timing. So the runtime is ready. So the very first thing I'm going to do is test this chat. So I'm going to click on the chat and ask, what is prompt engineering? So even though we're talking about dealing with the dental office, we have not put any constraints. As you can see, all the system does is say you are a helpful assistant. So let's see what output it gives us for prompt engineering real quick. While that's running, so it gives you an information on prompt engineering. Okay, let's ask it a question. Let's see. Let me find a question real quick. Okay, so I'm gonna say my molar tooth is aching. What could be the cause? So I'm gonna go back to the flow and ask, because hey, this is a dental office that we're dealing with. And let's see whether it knows the answer. And mind you, this is just using Azure OpenAI. So while that is running, is gathering the output, we're gonna quickly look at the answer. So sure enough, it's telling me that, okay, with my molar tooth ache, these are the potential causes. So it could be a tooth decay, gum disease, dental abscess, I don't know what that is, impact tooth, teeth grinding, and sinus infection. So finally, I'm going to ask it, what is the dental office? And this is what I was telling you. If your LLM, your model was trained in the past, is pre-built, it may not have the up-to-date information that pertains to the dentist that I thought I was chatting with. So how can we change this to make it customizable to your data source? So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to use embedding. So we're going to select embedding. Embedding, we're going to call it embed question. So I'll do this real quick. Sorry if I'm rushing. So with that, I'm going to give it a connection. Oh, actually, no. Sorry about that. Let's not do that yet. I'm going to give it, let's see. Yeah, actually, yeah, it is going to be embedding. Sorry about that. That's the beauty of when you start rushing, we start making mistakes, but all of this will make sense to you. We need to select the connection of the model. We need to give it a deployment name. So the deployment, since we're dealing with embedding text, because you typed text into the prompt. Mind you, the data source that you have in the vector database is in numeric format. So you can't search text on numeric format. So that's why we're creating an embedding. So we have the connection to Azure OpenAI. We select the same embedding that we use to embed the input in the database, because that makes a difference. If we use a different one, it has a whole different dictionary, and that can screw things up. So you have to use the same one. Then we're passing in the question. So once we do that, we're going to click on save. And if you notice, automatically it created a node here called embed question. The next thing we need to do is, okay, where is our data? Because we need to search that data. So we're going to go to vector index lookup and select under that, let's say search vector. So this is where our data source is. So we're going to add that. One thing I forgot to tell you, but it's included in the instructions. When you submitted your Python database, this is what it was creating. It had a pipeline job that it was running, and basically what it did was it took your data set. So your data set, this is the CSV file that we had, created chunks and created embeddings and stored the embeddings. The next thing you needed to do was go under data, go to the name of the vector index that you named, and all you need to do is select the data store URL. So this is the actual data source that is storing your vector database. Don't worry, this is a live demo, but all of that are detailed in the workshop. So you'll be able to follow all of these step by step. But I just want to explain to you guys, so you guys just viewing are not lost. And pretty soon you guys will see exactly what we're doing. So you have the question. The next thing, since it didn't save, I forgot to save, I'll select vector index lookup. So we're going to do search index. Then we're going to do add. So the path it needs is that vector store that it created. The query that it needs is basically, it needs the output from your embedding, because you just embedded, took your question, change it into numeric format. So that's all of that. Now it's going to be able to search your endpoint. The next thing we need to do is create a proper prompt, giving it the do's and don'ts of what it should do. So in order to do that, we're going to add the prompt um, um, tool. So let's say generate prompt. So with this one, I'm going to go ahead and use the prompt, the good variation of the prompt, but I highly urge you to go through the lab and copy the prompt. Um, there are two different prompts, and you see the benefits of modifying your prompt. So it'll be able to give you a good answer. So give me a second. I just minimize my window. And trust, this is like we're almost done. So let me get back to the flow. So I'm going to copy my prompt over here. So basically what I'm doing is in the system, I'm overriding all of that. I'm telling it that, hey, you are AI dental assistant designed to answer questions. I need you to generate a response to a user question based only on the context and information in the dental documents. So it understands that it's the documents in the vector. You must only provide responses from the vector data documents. I want a well-formed and polite response. Please provide a unique, honest, and relevant answer. If you are not sure about a question, kindly respond, I don't know. So these are the restrictions that you need to put and the instructions that you need to put. So that's part of prompt engineering. I'm not going to go into details around that. That was covered in the prior section. So the next thing that is another tool feature that I really like about this is these are different placeholders based upon all the data that we've been passing along. The good thing is we're looping through the history. We're copying the questions that you asked before and also the answers before. And all you need to do is click on this validate and parse input because you provided all of this system input, but it does not know where to grab this information. So for the history, we're going to tell it that go to the input history. That's where you're going to grab the history information. Okay, my scroll down is not cooperating. For the context, we're going to give it the output of the question. So the search is going to be the context. The question is the initial input question. So we're going to save that before I lose that. So as you can see on the other, on the right-hand side, as we're creating all of these nodes, you were seeing all these nodes connect because we take an output from one and feed it into another. So it's a logical way of building your prompts. Lastly, we want it to provide an answer. So I'm going to override what was there before and say answer. I just call it a name answer. You can give it whatever name you had. And remember, I had all of these fields, but since we have a new parameter, we're going to call it, say, generate. So it knows that, okay, it needs the answer. So where are we going to grab that answer is under the generate prompt, the prompt that you had. If you want to format let's say the response before you show it to the user, you can easily add another field in there for Python and add your own code around that. So this is the the end of our flow. Let's save it. So the next thing we're going to go and do is we want to clear the cache. We don't want it to confuse the last conversation and pick up from that, since it was providing answers that were kind of off base. So the last question that we asked it was, what is your address? So let me make sure I find that. So now let's go back and see whether it's able to read from our input data. So I'm gonna go, let me minimize that. Okay, I guess minimize is not. Okay. So I'm gonna paste the last question that we had that it got stuck on. So now I'm gonna say, what is the dental office hospital's address? So I'm gonna enter that, and let's cross our fingers that it provides the right answer in our data source. So let me come back. It's still running. Okay, so if you notice, it provides the address of your data, because now, based upon the restrictions that we gave and our input, it is reading from our data. The next thing is, let's give it another information to confirm that it is reading from our input. Then I'll show you something that is a responsible AI violation example. So please look at this screen. Since we rushed, we are skipping certain parts, but initially, before we add another variant, what you're gonna do is it's gonna give you all the answers pertaining to your document, but we discover a flaw that we asked what supplements are good for teeth. It was not in our data set, but it did provide an answer. What is the implications of that? It has nothing to do with the data that your business has. So let's say in a medical scenario or use case, if it's to recommend supplements or medication, and somebody takes that, has a negative reaction, guess who's going to be liable? It's going to be your business. So that's where groundedness comes into picture. And another thing is, it lists all of those supplements that are so-called good for the teeth. We don't even know whether that's factual. At least I'm not in the dental industry. But let's say it was false. That's another thing that you're going to run into. But since we're speeding up, I'm going to ask the question, because there's going to be a part that you create another variant to improve your prompt. So now I'm going to ask it again, what are the supplements that are good for your teeth? And in the instructions, after discovering that it violated a responsible AI use case. Wait a minute. Hang on. Let's see. Okay, I think I probably used the wrong variant. But basically, that is an example of when it gives information that is not in your data source. You need to update your prompt settings. Let me try clearing the history, just in case it gets confused. But basically, in your lab, after updating your prompt, it should be able to come up with a response that says, I don't know. So in 2 seconds, I'm going to also quickly walk you through how to create evaluations. We're not going to have time to go, okay, so now it is reading our prompt. So I needed to clear the session. But after giving it strict instructions, now it's not going and giving people all of those supplements. So once you're excited, happy, and ready to with your flow, the way to test your flow is first you launch under the evaluation icon. You are going to specify the data source that you created from the name that you gave your data source when you were in the Jupyter Notebook creating the index and registering it. So you use a registered data set for chat history. Since we don't have anything in history yet, and it's a list, we're just going to do open and close bracket. What is the question? You're telling it with the data that I just provided, reference the question section. The next thing we do is, what's it called? Click on next. Actually, wait a minute. Do we skip any steps? We need to select a template. Okay. So we click on next instead of submit. So we're going to click on next real quick. Okay, now my screen is acting up because this is, okay, that did not go well. So quickly, once again, since my mouse is not responding, I'll try this one more time. If not, you can go. So, okay, so we were here. We needed to click on next. So this is why I was telling you that given your use case, if you have a classification type of use case, you can easily use classification, check for accuracy. For us, we're dealing with our data, so we can say, okay, I want to test for groundedness, make sure it's not giving information that I did not give it. You can also test for relevance. It is giving answers, but how is it relevant to the scope of your workshop? So we need to populate these other fields. For context, it's going to be the same as the output that's covered in the lab. Then let's scroll down, and for some reason my mouse is not cooperating, but to run the evaluation you need the connection. So that's that for the groundedness. Also, I need to come and set the output, the context information. So that's the output. Then also connect with this. So we're using GPT, so it automatically does all of that. When we're done, that's when you submit. You're gonna submit, and let me cancel out of this if it can cancel. But basically, once you go into run, let me open another screen since we're at time. You can go to Prompt Flow and go under runs. It will show you all the history runs. So the ones that have started and not started. The key thing is when, and actually it's better for me to bring the actual workshop. So after you go through all of that, the good thing the evaluation does is it gives you the individual use cases, the tests that I ran, and it's giving a score for each one. So if one of the individual tests failed, it will say failed. If it completed, it will say completed. If you scroll over, it gives the score. So between 0 and 5, where 5 is a high score, it was accurate based upon the output. 1, that means it's not good, that sort of thing. So that's how to gauge how well your flow is performing. Since we use multiple, what's it called? Metrics, we use relevance, we use groundedness. It's also going to show that same 5. So you may see something like 4.83 or 4.9 9 or 5. That's the score overall summary of how well your flow performed. So sorry, we ran out of time, but I hope this gave you guys an idea of prompt flow, how to build robust applications using your LLMs, and a visual way of doing it, and also evaluating it at a larger scale, and also keeping responsible AI into picture. And that's it. Any other questions?
Let me just quickly check. So Memo Flins asked a little while back, actually, the GitHub link. I'm not sure of, okay, of the website. There was a question about how do you add constraints.
Add constraints. Oh, that's in the prompt. So
Yeah.
when we create the prompt, that's where you're adding the constraints, like it must do this, do not do that. And if you took yesterday's series, we went a little bit into prompt engineering. So that will also give you another idea. But where we're doing the asterisks, do not do this, that's how you emphasize the importance of it for the prompt engineering as well. You tell it verbally and it understand natural processing. One thing I also want to bring to your attention is don't worry if you were not able to finish or go through this lab. We have a discussion page. So any questions that you have, just go in here and add a new discussion question, select the question that you have. We're monitoring this and we will answer every question that you have, any errors that you have, screenshot and whatnot. But at the end of the day, we're here to make sure you understand this, and how, if you have questions, how to apply it to your use case, we're also there. We showed you groundedness easily with the content safety that we did yesterday. You can easily incorporate it also into this flow. So there are a lot of things that you can do when you're creating the logical flow of your LLM or generative AI application.
Cool. Should we take one last question?
Yeah.
Jonathan asks, is it possible, for example, to filter by user data? For example, a customer that asks about its data.
Yes.
Like basically it's about filtering, yeah.
Yeah. So if you look at the example, this is what we were specifying. The prompts that we were putting here, that's where I was telling it, like you put in asterisk, and I was saying the vector dental database, because that's the spreadsheet that we loaded into the vector database. So yeah, those are how you can specify where it should read the data that you have. And I believe you're going to have different data sources. It's not going to be always CSV files. Um, what we'll do is at the bottom of this, what's it called, video, once it posts, I'll also share the link in the description, the different data sources that you can also utilize. So it'll help you in the engineering to say, reference this data source and reference that data source, that sort of things, and also the different data types in your data lake.
Cool, cool. Cool. I think we went a little bit over time, but I think that was fairly comprehensive. And the fact that you can, if you're watching this video later, you can actually go to the discussion and get your problem solved, right? So the idea was to kickstart your understanding of Azure ML Prompt Flow, and help you kind of build better tools. This is, as I said, like the second in this series, and we'll have the third part happening on March 13th, if I remember right. Let me just check.
Yep.
Yes, March 13th. Yeah,
Mhm.
on March 13th, we are going to talk about the responsible AI dashboard, which is like the third and the concluding part of this series. So, I mean, me and Ruth will be there again to explain you one more tool in this, one more tool in this toolbox, so that you can actually build better tools. With that, I hope you found this enjoyable. And like, if you know any friends who are coming for the third one, I would request them to go to the first two labs, because the third one also builds on that. We'll talk about the traditional ML models in the third one. Yeah. Any final words, Ruth, before we stop?
Yeah, actually, the last one is very exciting. It will definitely blow your mind. A lot of audience have been asking for this. They don't know it's aware it's out there. So it'll help you with things like transparency, how to debug and show transparency in your how your model is behaving. So it's no longer a black box; it's a glass box. So you know exactly how your model is thinking, but we'll cover that on the 13th. So thank you so much for you guys' time and patience and all the um, good questions that you've asked. I'm looking forward to continuing the discussion on the workshop website as well, and see you guys soon. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone. See you on March 13th. Bye.